So many of us wish we had more time to work on our comics, but we just can't find it. And the time that we do have is never quite the right time, is it? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how you can utilize the time that you do have so you work on your comic in a high impact way, whether you have 10 minutes of time a day or a few hours. Because the secret isn't about squeezing more time out of your day. It's about leveraging the time that you do have so all the actions that you make have the highest impact on your progress. Plus, I'll show you how I squeeze time out of my day despite having a 9 to 5, lots of different side projects and a family to support. But before we get to that, let's talk about leverage. In order for us to leverage the time that we do have, we need to have our thoughts figured out before we sit down to work on our comic. So many of us sit down to work on our comic and think, right, what am I working on? If you're doing that, you're already wasting time. Instead, you want to be sitting down knowing exactly what you're going to be working on next. This not only helps you get going faster, but it stops you procrastinating and doom scrolling. So how do you do it? Well, what's worked for me massively is my Notion template, which you can get in the description of this video if you want a template that's already built for you specifically for comics. What this does is it utilizes this tracker, so I already know before I sit down exactly what I'm working on, whether that's the next 4 pages of thumbnails or figuring out a specific design for a specific character. I can sit down at my computer after a long day and I'm straight into creator mode. If you're a bad procrastinator, like I am, this saves you hours over the course of a week because you don't even give yourself the chance to start procrastinating. You're already in the zone before you sit down. Oftentimes what I'll do is just before I leave work is I'll load up Notion in my phone, which is connected to the browser version, and just double check what I need to do. So while I'm driving home, I'm thinking about what I need to do so that by the time I get home, I'm already in that mode. Now, another way that we can leverage our time is reducing the barrier to entry. We're already doing this if we're using our Notion templates because we're setting ourselves up to be in that mode immediately. So it doesn't feel like such a heavy lift to get started on your comic. But we can take this concept a step further and apply it to our workflow. Instead of sitting down and thinking to yourself, I need to finish this page tonight, start thinking, I'm going to work on this page tonight. This tiny change in mindset takes the pressure away from finishing something and puts it on action instead. That's where the pressure should be. Action, not output. The problem with putting pressure on output is that there are going to be days where you just don't get the things done that you planned to get done. There are about 1 billion reasons why this happens. It could be that you're tired, you're stressed, you're anxious, you're getting ill, or you're just having a bad drawing day. But maybe you set out to do a load of thumbnails, but for some reason you've got 0 ideas coming into your head, and all the ideas that you do put out are complete trash and they're making you feel really bad about yourself. Happens all the time. Well, if the pressure is on output, now suddenly you've got that to add on top of your bad drawing day, because not only are your ideas bad, but you now have to finish something that is bad, and that sucks. But then you start looking at the clock and you realize that you've only done 2 pages out of the 4 and you've only got 3 minutes left. So you either go over your allotted time to get them finished, resulting in less sleep and making everything worse, or you beat yourself up and start feeling guilty because you didn't complete what you set out to do. And it makes working on your comic the next day a little bit harder because now your rhythm is gone and your confidence is shot. However, if you change that goal from completing those thumbnails tonight to working on those thumbnails tonight, it changes everything because the pressure shifts to you taking action, not about the outcome of those actions, which you can't always control. As long as you spent those 30 minutes working on your comic, you've won. You've achieved what you set out to achieve. Even if that only means 1 panel. Yeah, it's not huge progress, but it's progress. And that gives you rhythm and confidence to keep coming back night after night, even if that means you only have 30 minutes a day to work on it. But there is another way that we can leverage our time beyond what we've already discussed, and it's probably the most effective, which is brain hijacking. But before I tell you how to do that, I want to tell you about my monthly Patreon live streams. This is where me and my patrons get together and we discuss our pain points and they get their questions answered to help them overcome their own obstacles. So if time and energy are obstacles for you or you're stuck in a rut creatively, then check the link in the description. It's a great way to gain momentum back from your comic and to support the channel at the same time. Now let's talk about brain hijacking. Why am I doing that? Right. I'm going to dive into this a bit more in a future video because there's a lot to talk around this subject, but I'll touch on it here. When you're working on your comic, you're using various different energy sources. And depending on what you find challenging versus what you find easy will depend on how much energy those things consume. If you find thumbnailing really fun and easy, it's not going to consume that much energy, and it might actually give you energy by getting you excited to work on your comic. But if you hate color, that's the thing that's going to take much more energy out of you. So learn what you enjoy the most and learn what you enjoy the least, and leverage those activities based on the amount of time that you have available. For example, let's say that you find thumbnailing really fun, as I do. You should work on them when you don't have that much time or energy, because thumbnailing is really easy, and like I said, it gives you energy because you really enjoy doing it. And likewise, if you find color challenging, as I do, then save that action for when you have more time and more energy. This could be on the weekends or the holidays. Now, the great thing about doing all the things that we've discussed in this video is that it naturally gives you more bang for your buck. Because when you leverage the time that you have, you're squeezing not more time out, but more productivity from the time that you have available. And trust me, getting more time isn't always the answer. When I had lots of time when I was younger, do you know what I did? I played video games and got high. It was the best time. But I wasn't exactly productive. So more time isn't always the answer. But more time is sometimes an answer. And this is how I get more time out of my day. First, I take advantage of my lunch breaks at work. This is where I do a lot of writing and sometimes a bit of drawing as well. I don't tend to work on my comics that much during my lunch breaks because I have other side projects like this YouTube channel. So I tend to work on that during then. And also I find that for comics, I work better in the evenings anyway. But if I were to work on my comic during my lunch break, then I would practice drawing tricky character poses or figure out some character designs, or because I've got Notion on my phone, I can access my script wherever I want, which means that I can thumbnail some pages out based on my script while I'm eating my sandwich. Now, do I do this for every single lunch break? No. A lot of my lunch breaks are me just doom scrolling because my brain is dead. But when I have excess energy, I use those lunch breaks to make little bits of progress forwards. Another thing that I did was I stopped playing video games or watching YouTube videos on my phone until I'd done some work towards my comic. I'm not depriving myself of those things because I enjoy doing them, I'm just putting the comic first. Now, some of you watching will literally have zero extra time that you can squeeze out of your day, but most of us can find at least another half an hour if we just change our habits slightly. What I used to do was I would promise myself that I'd work on my comic for 30 minutes and then I'd load up the video games that I was playing at the time until I got tired and went to bed. But I found over time that those half an hour sessions would turn into 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, sometimes even 3 hours, because you get momentum and you just want to keep making your comic. What I used to do, and this is not a recommendation because this doesn't work, is I would boot up a game to relax after like a long day at work or whatever. And then once I've had a couple of games, then that's when I'd start my comic. But you know as well as I do that it's never just a couple of games. I'd spend the entire evening on the games and be like, okay, I'll work on the comic tomorrow. And that just repeats a really horrible cycle where you just end up not progressing whatsoever. Now I flipped it. Now it's a case of I sit down, I work on the comic first, and then once I've done a reasonable amount of time on the comic, like half an hour, 2 hours, whatever, then I'll boot up the video game or the video. And what I found was that the more I put the comic first, the less I actually wanted to play video games or whatever, because I was gathering so much momentum working on the comic that I just didn't want to stop and I wanted to keep going. Again, this isn't about depriving ourselves of the things that we enjoy. Like if you enjoy watching TV or playing video games or exercising, who enjoys that, but some weirdos do, then it's not about stopping those things because you're still supposed to enjoy yourself, right? The thing that I enjoy doing, which isn't particularly productive, but it's really fun, is playing video games. And the only difference between what I do now versus what I did back then was that I put the comic first. So I work on a comic first, or the tasks that are actually going to make me more productive and give me more back in the long term, like recording this video. And then I'll boot up Resident Evil, which I'm going to do once I finish recording this. Lady Dimitrescu is calling me. And while I'm idolizing a giant vampire lady, you should be working on your comic. And if you still find that you're struggling with time, then watch this video next where I'll show you how you can get even more time to work on your comic.